Exposure to highly palatable processed foods during childhood and adolescence may have far-reaching consequences that extend well beyond occasional indulgence. Emerging research suggests that repeated consumption of ultra-processed foods, engineered to maximize sweetness, saltiness, and fat content, can actually reshape taste preferences in young people, leaving them less responsive to natural flavors and more dependent on intense, artificial stimulation. The implications are serious. What begins as a habit of convenience may evolve into a biological recalibration that alters appetite, reward sensitivity, and dietary patterns for a lifetime, setting the stage for chronic health problems that are difficult to reverse. Children's taste systems are highly plastic. During early development, repeated exposure to certain flavors strengthens neural pathways associated with preference and reward, while underexposure to other flavors diminishes sensitivity. When diets are dominated by ultra-processed foods, the brain and taste buds become accustomed to extreme sweetness, high sodium levels, and rich fat textures. In practical terms, fruits, vegetables, and whole grains often begin to taste bland or unsatisfying in comparison. The subtle flavors that characterize minimally processed foods, slightly bitter greens, lightly sweet fruit, earthy whole grains, fail to provide the same level of dopamine-driven pleasure. Over time, the body learns to seek the more intense, engineered flavors, reinforcing a cycle of preference for foods that are calorie-dense but nutrient-poor. This recalibration is not just psychological, it has measurable neurological and metabolic consequences. Functional imaging studies show that repeated consumption of hyperpalatable foods increases activation in the brain's reward centers, while simultaneously weakening the responsiveness of regions responsible for self-control and natural satiety signaling. This means that young people do not simply like processed foods, they begin to require them to achieve the same level of satisfaction that ordinary foods once provided. The result is a heightened drive for sweetness, salt, and fat, often at the expense of balanced nutrition. Children accustomed to ultra-processed diets may reject whole foods entirely, reducing intake of fiber, vitamins, minerals, and phytochemicals essential for growth, immune function, and cognitive development. The consequences extend to metabolic regulation as well. Highly sweetened foods drive rapid spikes in blood glucose and insulin, teaching the body to expect frequent, intense energy surges. This can blunt the perception of fullness and increase the likelihood of overeating, even when caloric intake is already sufficient. The combination of a desensitized taste system and altered metabolic signaling can create a perfect storm. Children are biologically primed to crave ultra-palatable foods, physiologically inclined to consume excess calories, and behaviorally conditioned to find natural foods unsatisfying. This pattern is particularly concerning during adolescence, when lifelong dietary habits are being formed and metabolic systems are still highly adaptable. Social and environmental factors intensify the problem. Ultra-processed foods dominate school cafeterias, convenience stores, and after-school snack options. They are aggressively marketed through social media, gaming platforms, and influencer culture, reinforcing their perceived desirability and social relevance. Peer pressure and convenience further entrench consumption patterns, making repeated exposure almost unavoidable. As a result, even children with early experiences of whole foods may gradually abandon them in favor of the engineered alternatives. The long-term implications are profound. Recalibrated taste preferences may contribute to increased risk of obesity, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even mood disorders as nutrient deficiencies accumulate and reward systems become maladaptive. Breaking these patterns later in life is extremely difficult. Taste preferences established during youth are remarkably resilient, and adults who attempt to shift toward minimally processed diets often report that fruits, vegetables, and plain grains seem bland or unappealing. What was once a simple matter of dietary choice becomes a biological challenge, with the body actively resisting healthier options. The warning is clear and urgent. Exposure to highly palatable processed foods during formative years is not a neutral or reversible influence. It is an engineered intervention into developing sensory, neurological, and metabolic systems. By shaping taste preferences, these foods increase the likelihood of lifelong dependency on artificial stimulation, creating generations that may struggle to find satisfaction in real, nutritious foods. Without proactive efforts to limit exposure, improve access to whole foods, and educate families and communities, society risks raising children whose appetites have been fundamentally rewired, favoring engineered pleasure over nourishment, convenience over health, and temporary gratification over long-term well-being.